Hi everyone, and welcome to Val Talks Pets, the forum for pet parents and enthusiasts alike. Having been in the pet industry for over 10 years now, I'm going to share with you issues and questions that arise as I work with pet parents on a day-to-day basis. I am not a veterinarian, but I do have certifications in canine, feline, small animal, fish and herptile, and avian health and nutrition from the University of California, Davis Extension. Hi everyone, and thanks for joining me on this episode of Val Talks Pets. On this episode, I am moving away a bit from domestic pets, as I would like to highlight a much endangered cat called the Scottish Wildcat. I have mentioned the Scottish Wildcat in other episodes, but I think this cat and the efforts to save it from extinction are extremely worthy of a solo episode. So let's get to it and explore the Scottish Wildcat. The Scottish Wildcat is just that, a wild cat, not to be confused with feral cats. As Wikipedia points out, the cats at one time were quite numerous throughout Great Britain as a whole, but now roam specifically in northern and eastern Scotland. As with many indigenous animals, habitat loss and what is described as persecution declined the numbers of the wild cats tremendously. Let's define persecution with reference to animals. According to Biology Libre Text, persecution of an animal involves the indiscriminate abuse or killing of a group of animals, generally used as a strategy to prevent property damage. So, for example, crop raiding elephants and livestock depredation. I'm guessing from this that at the turn of the 20th century, populations were growing, and guess who got, quote, unquote, persecuted for being where they wanted to build houses and farms? The wildcat. So, they pushed north, trying to save their species, leaving behind, I'm sure, a horrible trail of being culled. As Wiki continues to explain, the Scottish Wildcat prefers the woodland areas and I believe is rather elusive. The cat is listed as critically endangered, and believe it or not, one of the elements that really threaten the cat is the mating with domestic cats. I mentioned this in my episode on domestication of cats, that all individuals sampled in recent years showed high levels of hybridization with domestic and feral cats. Therefore, this population is thought to be functionally extinct in the wild. Let's take a look at what the Scottish Wildcat looks like. According to Wikipedia, the male Scottish Wildcat has a head-to-body length ranging from 22.8 to 25 inches with a long tail. Females are from 19.8 to 22.5 inches in length. They weigh approximately 8.3 to 16 pounds for males, and females 5.2 to 10.3 pounds. So, to put this in perspective, a Maine Coon male weighs between 13 to 18 pounds, and females 9 to 12 pounds. So, they are pretty much in the size of a Maine Coon. So not a tiny cat by any means. As for their fur, they look pretty much like a tabby cat, with the striping seen with tabbies. Their stripes continue on the cheeks and legs, and they have a black tip on their tails. They also seem to do lots of typical cat behaviors. They hunt for rodents and rabbits and travel mostly at night. They do cache their food if they haven't eaten all of their catch. Females roam too and will find a nice, safe rock cairn to have kittens. Now, the Scottish Wildcat is incredibly endangered and is considered a victim of genomic extinction. So, what is being done? To begin with, The Scottish Wildcat was given protection in 1988 under the United Kingdom's Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981. This act was amended in 1981 and states the act is to prohibit certain methods of killing or taking wild animals, to amend the law relating to protection of certain mammals, to restrict the introduction of certain animals and plants, to amend the Endangered Species Import and Export Act 1976, to amend the law relating to nature conservation, the countryside, and national parks, etc. Within the Act, under CITES Appendix 2, the Scottish wildcat is classified as a priority species in the UK Biodiversity Action Plan. In Scotland itself, according to Scottish Forestry, it is an offence deliberately or recklessly to capture, injure, or kill a wildcat, to disturb it while it is occupying its breeding sites, resting places, or to obstruct access to its breeding site, resting places. It is an offense to damage or destroy breeding sites and resting places, even accidentally. Today, the Scottish wildcats are only found in the remote areas of the Scottish Highlands, so someone would have to go out of their way to harass them. But as we all know, you can't put anything past unethical people. So hopefully, the Protection Act and the legislation can be a deterrent. Now, however, having said that, let's look at the controversy of Swedish energy giant Vattenfall's go-ahead to build a second site for wind turbines in Clashendurch in 2023. This site near Aberdeenshire was set for 14 turbines and was approved by Scottish ministers. This new site is actually near the other site that has 18 turbines. According to the BBC, Wildcat Haven's director, Paul O'Donoghue, described it as potentially catastrophic. Wildcat Haven is a Scottish wildcat preservation organization. Vattenfall said in a statement, "We design our wind farms so they reduce carbon emissions and protect wildlife at the same time." They also stated, "Our wind farm at Clashendurch has already been generating electricity for over 8 years with no impact negatively on the wildcat population, and we have recently completed peat bog restoration and tree planting to further cover for the wildcats to hunt and roam." Scottish ministers have been served a petition for judicial review. But, as BBC Scotland reported on February 8th, 2024, the judge threw out the petitions and has given full conversion for Vattenfall to continue with their second phase turbine farm. Let's talk now about the Highland Wildlife Park in Kincraig, Kingussie, which is 7 miles from Aviemore, where there are actual Scottish wildcats. According to their website, highlandwildpark.org.uk, there are lots of wildcats at the Highland Wildlife Park. They have an area called Wildcat Wood, where they roam around and may or may not be seen. But apparently, many are in the care of the Saving Wildcats Conservation Breeding for Release Center, who you will not see. So before I go into more info on the Saving Wildcats Conservation Program, might as well get the controversy dealt with. The Saving Wildcats program is capturing wildcats from the wild to create a breeding program so they can reintroduce more wildcats to the wild. This is part of the Scottish Wildcat Conservation Action Plan, unveiled in September 2013. According to the BBC, on this issue, 30 organizations back the action plan, but Captive Animal Protection Society did not agree with the program. The BBC states the Captive Animals Protection Society has criticized the captive breeding plan and instead supports the use of the Wildcat Haven, a 500 square mile area that covers parts of the Ardnamurchan and Morven peninsulas. It was Wildcat Haven that I just mentioned that took on Vattenfall over the new wind turbines in Aberdeenshire. The organization felt that trapping the wildcats to breed them in what is essentially a zoo harmed the species' chances of survival. I'm not 100% understanding this view because if this is the way to create a breeding program with the intention of release back to the wild, I don't see the harm to the species. Plus, Wildcat Haven, as mentioned, has a 500 square mile area to allow the wildcats a sanctuary, but how did they get the wildcats to roam there in particular? Either way, I see good on both sides here. So let's get back to Saving Wildcats, the organization. First, I would definitely recommend looking at their website, savingwildcats.org.uk. Click on the Learn More About Saving Wildcats. This page shows our vision, and there's a video there called Clinging On by a Claw. Watch this video. Not only does it show the beauty of Scotland, but also the wildcats. It shows these beautiful cats, known also as the Highland tiger, roaming the highlands and playing with each other, while the narrator, Gordon Buchanan, explains the urgency and what is happening to save the Scottish wildcat. As he says, a huge centre is being made available near the Highland Wildlife Park in the Cairngorms, specifically for the reintroduction of the cats to the wild. And let me interject here about NatureScot for a minute. NatureScot is Scotland's nature agency. According to their website, nature.scot, about NatureScot, it is the job of all of us to achieve a balance in the sensitive management of our natural world in order to maintain and enhance nature. According to Wikipedia, in 2023, NatureScot approved a license for release of captive-bred wildcats into the Cairngorms region during the summer of that year. The first 19 cats were released in early June 2023. In spring 2024, at least 2 of the cats released the previous year gave birth to kittens. If you look at Saving Wildcats' website, they go through all the processes of how to grow the population of the cats and how they prepare them for the wild. As their vision states, wildcats restored to landscapes across Scotland, cherished by people for generations to come. Now, in the second week of August, I was at a Scottish festival near my area, and I ventured over to the merchandise table for one of the featured bands, Albanach, of whom I have been a fan for several years, and are self-titled as Bare Knuckle Pipes and Drums. Believe me, Albanach can bring down the house. Anyway, on their merchandise table, I glanced down, and lo and behold, they were featuring brochures on sponsoring a wildcat from the Saving Wildcats organization. The brochure explains about the urgency of the wildcat and has photos of those cats that a person can sponsor, outlines the cost of feeding, healthcare, and the preparing for the wild, with GPS tracking collars each reintroduced cat wears to the tune of 1,500 pounds. I would like to shout out to Almanac for their foresight and care to have these brochures available to their many fans, allowing for the Highland Tiger's race against time the exposure it needs. Well, I think that gives a good overview of the much endangered Scottish Wildcat or Highland Tiger. The efforts of the different groups is quite amazing, and I just know they will be exceeding with their cause. You'd be surprised how many animals have been brought back from the brink of extinction with dedicated professionals, volunteers, breeding and release programs, and donations. It can be done. If you would like to help with the Scottish Wildcat's return to the wild, visit Saving Wildcats at savingwildcats.org.uk, where under the Support tab, there's a whole list of ways to help out, sponsoring a cat being one of them. Wildcathaven.com is also working diligently to save the wildcat, and their website also invites adoption of a cat and donation options to help the cause as well. They also have some beautiful merchandise as well, from cards, calendars to apparel. And of course, check out the videos on both sites. These Highland Tigers are so cute. So tell your friends, visit the conservation organizations that are working so hard. And next time you hear about an elusive cat that roams the highlands of Scotland, you'll know this one is true, not the leg-pulling joke about the haggis doing the same thing. Scottish Wildcat, or the Highland Tiger, needs exposure to its serious plight, and we can do it by simply learning, because as I say, knowing is caring.
Thank you for listening to Val Talks Pets. Please remember to follow or subscribe to ensure that you never miss an episode. To really help the show and to make it easier for others to find, please rate and review each episode that you find interesting and helpful. And don't forget that you can also email me at val@valtalkspets.com with topics you would like me to address or with any questions you may have. Also, check out my website at valtalkspets.com and let me know what you think and how we can improve upon it. Thanks for caring.